We begin this morning by placing ourselves in 1818 in the village of Oberndorf on the Salzach River in present-day Austria. A Catholic priest named Father Josef Mohr had written the words for Silent Night, or Stille Nacht. He asked his friend Franz Gruber, a schoolmaster and organist, to compose a melody. It's generally thought that it was written for two solo voices and guitar. Many legends surround the writing of the song, and one of the largest areas of debate is why the music was written for guitar. After all, guitars were mainly used at inns and taverns at the time, so it would be strange to use them in church. A popular explanation blames a particularly hungry church mouse. The story goes that a little mouse had been so hungry that it started nibbling at the old bellows of the church organ. As a result, the organ was damaged and couldn't be used for Christmas Eve, so Silent Night was played on guitar. While the church mouse is a great legend, there's little truth in it according to most historians. Some also say that Mohr and Gruber could have decided to perform the song with the guitar from the very beginning, as they possibly planned on singing the song after Christmas Mass in front of the nativity scene outside, rather than playing it inside the church during the service. I'm not entirely sure what the basis is for this idea, but it seems less likely given that there appeared to be a part for the choir in some early manuscripts. Another explanation that seems more likely is that river flooding damaged the organ, so Mohr asked Gruber to compose the music for the guitar. Since the church was eventually destroyed by repeated flooding, many scholars believe this is the most likely reason for the guitar. In any case, Silent Night was first sung on Christmas Eve in 1818, supposedly by Mohr and Gruber together at St. Nicholas Church. There are also some sources that say that choir or congregation joined in on the refrain. It's unclear what the refrain was, but some versions have the end of each verse repeated, so the repeated portion of the end of each verse may be the refrain for either the choir or the congregation to join. Here's an example that's close to some of that original music, including some extra notes that we no longer sing, and the refrain that the choir or congregation may have joined in. See if you can notice the extra notes and the refrain, first in German and then in English. As I mentioned earlier, St. Nicholas Church experienced repeated flooding over many years. Due to the high cost of repairs and the continued nature of the flooding, the church was eventually demolished. The 100th anniversary of the song, in December of 1918, fell at a difficult time immediately after World War I. Still, many of the citizens of Oberndorf wanted to honor the message of peace created by Mohr and Gruber. The construction of a memorial chapel began in 1924 under the difficult political and economic conditions of the period. It was eventually completed in 1937. Every year, people from around the world visit the memorial chapel and museum. At 5 p.m. every December 24th, a solemn memorial mass is held at the church, and visitors hear the famous carol sung in their many languages. When Father Mohr died in 1848, his body was buried at Wagrain. This was the location of his final assignment and a place where he was beloved. He oversaw the building of a primary school and a fund to help those who couldn't afford the school fees. His grave is maintained to this day near the entrance of the church. However, this gravesite contains only his body without his head. Why on earth would this be? Well, as it turns out, in 1912, a sculptor named Joseph Muehlbacher wanted to create a monument to Mohr and Gruber. But throughout his life, Mohr refused to be painted, so there was no picture of him. So, the sculptor arranged for Mohr's skull to be exhumed, so it could be used as a basis for his rendering. After the completion of the sculpture, the skull was not returned to the gravesite in Wagrain, but instead it was kept in Oberndorf and eventually walled into the Silent Night Chapel when it was built. There are now memorials to both Mohr and Gruber in the Silent Night Chapel. There were originally 6 verses to Silent Night. The version we sing now was translated by Episcopal priest John Young, first appearing in 1863. The verses we sing correspond to the original verses 1, 6, and 2. The original first verse actually goes more like this. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Round yon godly tender pair, holy infant with curly hair, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. And some of the original verses that are now left out speak even more to Mohr's hope for unity and peace among all peoples and nations. Here's an example of 2 such verses. Silent night, holy night, by his love, by his might, God our Father us has graced, as a brother gently embraced. Jesus, all nations on earth, Jesus, all nations on earth. Silent night, holy night, long ago, minding our plight, God the world from misery freed, in the dark age of our fathers decreed, all the world redeemed, all the world redeemed. Since its original performance, Silent Night has spread around the world to countless languages. It's been recorded and performed too many times to count. Of course, Bing Crosby's 1935 version became one of the biggest selling singles of the time. The Temptations had a version in 1970, and Al Green made it sound like a seduction song in 1983. It has been performed more recently by everyone from Mariah Carey to Kelly Clarkson and Justin Bieber to Pentatonix. But perhaps the way we like it best is on Christmas Eve with candles in our own church. A final note on legends. While Silent Night can be heard on radio stations throughout the entire pre-Christmas season in some countries and cultures, a strict rule is adhered to in the Alpine region. Silent Night may not be sung until December 24th, and ideally just during the actual Christmas Eve. A particularly frightening story is told to children in Bavaria, where it is said that if a person sings the song any day other than December 24th, the person will die. Well, happily, that's just a legend. And while we look forward to our special Christmas candlelight singing, we hope you'll also enjoy singing it with us as a summer treat today. Thanks for joining us for Christmas in July, and we hope you've enjoyed this walk through this old favorite and one of the most well-known Christmas hymns of all time.